The Artemis drifted through the void, its hull absorbing every stray photon that touched it. From a distance, it appeared as nothing more than a slight distortion against the star field, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Inside the bridge, Captain Sarah Chen watched the tactical display with unwavering focus as another correction patrol passed within 10,000 kilometers of their position. Quantum signature stable. Lieutenant Raj Patel reported from his engineering station, his voice barely above a whisper despite the fact that sound couldn't travel through space. Old habits died hard when you were this deep in enemy territory. They won't see us unless they literally bump into us. The Artemis represented humanity's greatest achievement in stealth technology. Its quantum absorption hull didn't just hide from sensors. It erased all traces of the ship's existence from reality itself. The Corrections, with their hyper-advanced technology and overwhelming military might, had never encountered anything like it. They didn't even know it was possible. "Status of the package?" Chen asked, her eyes still fixed on the patrol's trajectory. Dr. Emma Santos looked up from her station, where streams of data from their cargo hold scrolled past. "The quantum inverter is stable. All 30 nodes are synchronized and ready." She didn't mention what would happen if they lost synchronization. They all knew the risks. Humanity hadn't chosen this path. The Corrections had forced their hand when they arrived in Sol System 3 years ago, demanding Earth's immediate surrender and integration into their empire. When humanity refused, the aliens demonstrated their power by casually destroying Mars' largest colony. 2 billion lives snuffed out in an instant. But the Corrections had made a critical mistake. They assumed that humanity's technological inferiority meant they were dealing with primitives. They never considered that desperate humans might think outside the boundaries of conventional physics. "Multiple contacts," announced Lieutenant Commander Jack O'Neill from Tactical. "Looks like we've reached their outer defense perimeter. I count 73 automated platforms and at least 24 patrol ships." Chen nodded. The intelligence was accurate, then. This was the most heavily defended region of Coraxian space, the location of their quantum network hub, the facility that controlled their entire faster-than-light communication system. "Take us in, helmsman. Match velocity with that debris field." Chen gestured to a cluster of destroyed ships drifting near the perimeter. "Natural course only. No active corrections." The Artemis revolutionary propulsion system used gravity manipulation rather than conventional engines, allowing it to move without leaving any trace. To the Correction sensors, they would appear to be following normal orbital mechanics, just another piece of space debris from some long-ago battle. As they drifted closer to the defensive grid, Shen reflected on the sheer audacity of their mission. The quantum inverter in their cargo hold was designed to do more than just disrupt communications. If it worked as intended, it would turn the Correction's own quantum network against them, creating a cascade failure that would cripple their entire empire. One ship, one shot at changing the course of the war. "Captain," Santos called out, her voice tense. "I'm detecting unusual quantum fluctuations from the defense platforms. They're using some kind of new scanning technology." Chen's grip tightened on her command chair. "Can they detect us?" "No, but," Santos frowned at her readings, "the fluctuations are interfering with our absorption field. We're getting microscopic phase misalignments. Nothing serious yet, but if it gets worse." They all knew what that meant. If their quantum absorption field failed this deep in enemy territory, they wouldn't last 30 seconds. "How long until we reach the optimal deployment point?" Chen asked. O'Neill checked his calculations. "At current velocity, 18 hours. We'll have to pass between 2 defense platforms with only 300 kilometers clearance." Chen nodded. They had trained for this, simulated every possibility. But simulations couldn't capture the crushing pressure of knowing that humanity's future rested on their success. "Status report from all stations," she ordered. "Every system, every backup. We've got 18 hours to make sure we're ready for what comes next." As her crew began their methodical checks, Chen studied the massive Coraxian installation growing larger on their main viewer. Somewhere in that sprawling complex was the key to bringing down an empire. They just had to reach it. The Artemis continued its silent approach, carrying its deadly cargo toward the heart of humanity's greatest enemy. They were invisible, untraceable, impossible. They were humanity's last hope. 16 hours into their approach, the Artemis passed silently through a field of destroyed Coraxian warships. The hulking wrecks were remnants of some internal conflict, their quantum alloy hulls still bearing the scars of weapons far more advanced than anything humanity possessed. Captain Chen watched as her ship's sensors mapped every detail of the destruction. "Some of these ships are huge," O'Neill remarked, studying the tactical display. "That one there must be at least 4 kilometers long. What could have caused the Coraxians to turn on each other like this?" Dr. Santos looked up from her analysis. Based on the decay patterns, these ships were destroyed about 50 years ago. The quantum residue suggests they were fighting over control of the network hub we're targeting. A civil war? Patil asked from engineering, his hands never stopping their constant adjustment of the absorption field. "More like a coup attempt," Santos replied. "The losing side tried to seize control of the quantum network. Now their ships serve as a warning to others who might challenge the Empire's authority." Chen absorbed this information silently. The Coraxians' internal politics didn't concern her, except for how they might affect the mission. But the presence of these wrecks provided an unexpected advantage. Their quantum signatures helped mask the minute imperfections in the Artemis stealth field. "Captain," Patil called out suddenly, "I'm detecting power fluctuations in grid section 7. The absorption field is struggling to compensate." Chen moved to his station, studying the readouts. The quantum interference from the defense platforms was growing stronger as they got closer to their target. The Artemis revolutionary stealth system was being pushed to its limits. "Options?" she asked quietly. Patel's fingers danced across his console. "We can reroute power from non-essential systems, maybe buy us another few hours of stability. But..." He hesitated. "But what, Lieutenant?" "The quantum inverter in the cargo hold. It's becoming more active, like it's resonating with the Coraxian defense grid. If this continues, we might not be able to keep it contained until we reach the deployment point." Chen felt the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders. They had known this mission would be dangerous, but the complexity of what they were attempting became more apparent with each passing hour. They weren't just trying to sneak past the galaxy's most advanced civilization. They were carrying a weapon that could fundamentally alter the nature of quantum space itself. "Dr. Santos," Chen called out, "what happens if the inverter activates prematurely?" Santos looked uncomfortable. "Best case, it simply fails. Worst case, it creates a quantum cascade that could tear apart everything within 1,000 kilometers, including us." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Chen returned to her command chair, mind racing through possibilities. They couldn't turn back, not when they were this close. But they couldn't risk a catastrophic failure either. "Lieutenant Commander O'Neill, plot us a course through that debris field." She pointed to a particularly dense cluster of destroyed ships. "The quantum residue might help mask our signature. Dr. Santos, work with engineering to see if you can use the ambient radiation to stabilize the inverter." As her crew rushed to comply, Chen studied the massive quantum network hub looming in the distance. The Coraxian facility was a marvel of engineering, a structure larger than Earth's moon, pulsing with enough energy to power 1,000 civilizations, and somewhere inside it was the control node they needed to reach. "Captain," O'Neill reported, "I'm detecting increased activity from the defense platforms. They're adjusting their scan patterns." "Have they detected us?" "No, but..." He frowned at his display. "The patterns are becoming more irregular, almost like they're searching for something specific." Chen's eyes narrowed. The Coraxians couldn't know about the Artemis. The stealth technology was too new, too revolutionary. But they weren't stupid. They had to know that humanity would try something eventually. "Time to optimal deployment point?" she asked. 2 hours, assuming we maintain current velocity and trajectory. 2 hours. Chen looked around at her crew, seeing the tension in their faces, the determination in their eyes. They had trained for this mission, knowing it was likely a one-way trip. The quantum inverter would theoretically create a corridor for their escape, but no one really believed they would make it out alive. But that didn't matter. What mattered was completing the mission, giving humanity a fighting chance against an enemy that saw them as little more than insects to be crushed. "Keep us on course," Chen ordered. "Maintain radio silence. If they're looking for something, let them look. We're not here." The Artemis continued its ghost-like drift through the graveyard of Coraxian warships, its quantum absorption field bending reality around it. Inside the cargo hold, the inverter hummed with barely contained power, waiting to unleash chaos into the perfectly ordered quantum network of humanity's greatest enemy. 2 more hours until they changed the course of the war. 2 hours until they showed the Coraxians that humanity wasn't as helpless as they thought. 2 hours until they became the ghost in the machine that brought down an empire. The quantum network hub filled the Artemis view screen, its crystalline structures pulsing with colors that shouldn't exist in normal space. Captain Chen had seen the intelligence briefings, studied the long-range scans, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of the Coraxian facility. It was beautiful, terrifying, and utterly alien. Multiple ships entering the defense grid, O'Neill reported, his voice tight with tension. "Looks like a supply convoy. 6 cargo vessels. And wait." He leaned closer to his display. "Something else is accompanying them. I've never seen energy readings like these." Dr. Santos moved to his station, her eyes widening as she analyzed the data. "That's a quantum dreadnought. We theorized they existed, but this is the first confirmation. It's massive." Chen watched as the massive vessel emerged from quantum space, its hull rippling with patterns that hurt her eyes to look at. The dreadnought was easily 20 kilometers long, its surface covered in weapons that could reduce planets to ash. "The convoy is altering the defense grid's scan patterns," Patil warned from engineering. "Our absorption field is having trouble adapting. We're getting quantum fluctuations across all frequencies." Chen's mind raced. They were too close to turn back, but their carefully planned approach was falling apart. The presence of the dreadnought changed everything. Its advanced sensors might be able to detect the minute distortions caused by their stealth technology. "Dr. Santos," Chen called out, "what's the status of the inverter?" Santos checked her readings, her face grim. "The quantum interference is getting worse. The inverter is becoming increasingly unstable. If we don't deploy it soon." She didn't need to finish the sentence. They all knew what would happen if they lost containment this close to their target. The resulting quantum cascade would destroy everything within 1,000 kilometers, including the network hub. But it would also alert the Coraxians to Earth's location, guaranteeing humanity's extinction. "Captain," O'Neill's voice cut through her thoughts. "The dreadnought is launching probes. They're creating some kind of quantum detection web." Chen moved to the tactical display, studying the pattern of the probes. The Coraxians were being methodical, systematic, almost like. "They know we're here," she said quietly. "They don't know exactly where, but they know something's wrong." The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Their mission had always been a long shot, but now it seemed impossible. They were trapped between the approaching detection web and the increasingly unstable quantum inverter in their cargo hold. "Options," Chen demanded, looking at each of her officers in turn. Santos spoke first. "The inverter's destabilization might actually work in our favor. Its quantum signature is similar to the background radiation from the hub. If we time it right, we could hide in plain sight," Patel finished, catching on to her thinking. "Use the hub's own quantum field to mask our approach." It was insane. The kind of desperate plan that only humans would attempt. The Coraxians, with their rigid adherence to quantum physics, would never expect it. "How close would we need to get?" Chen asked. "Within the hub's primary quantum envelope," Santos replied. Less than 1,000 kilometers. But Captain, she hesitated. At that range, if anything goes wrong, we're dead anyway. Chen finished. She turned to O'Neill. Plot us a course that will look like natural debris movement. Use the convoy's wake to mask our trajectory. As her crew rushed to implement the plan, Chen watched the quantum dreadnought on the main viewer. The Corrections had built their empire on the assumption that they understood everything about quantum mechanics, that their mastery of it made them invincible. But they had never encountered human desperation. They had never faced an enemy willing to break the fundamental laws of physics itself to achieve victory. Course plotted, O'Neill reported. The convoy's quantum wake will carry us directly into the hub's envelope in 17 minutes. Engineering, status of the absorption field. Failing, Patil admitted, but it should hold until we reach the deployment point. After that, he shrugged. Chen nodded. They all knew this was likely a one-way mission. What mattered was completing it, showing the Corrections that humanity wasn't as primitive as they thought. Prepare the inverter for final deployment, she ordered. When we reach the envelope, we'll have one shot at this. Let's make it count. The Artemis drifted closer to the massive hub, riding the quantum wake of the alien convoy. Inside its cargo hold, the inverter hummed with barely contained power, its unstable field now working to their advantage, helping to hide them from the searching probes. They were about to attempt something that should be impossible, using the Corrections' own quantum network against them, turning their greatest strength into a weapon that could bring down their empire. All they had to do was survive the next 17 minutes. All they had to do was change the laws of physics itself. Just another day for humanity fighting against impossible odds. The quantum wake of the Correction convoy pulled the Artemis closer to the network hub, its massive crystalline structure now dominating every viewport. Captain Chen watched as streams of data flowed through the transparent sections of the facility, carrying commands that controlled an empire spanning thousands of light years. 8 minutes to quantum envelope, O'Neill announced, his voice steady despite the tension. The Dreadnought's detection web is still expanding. Coverage is now at 60% of local space. Patil's hands flew over his engineering console, making constant micro-adjustments to their failing stealth system. The absorption field is starting to break down. We're leaving quantum echoes in our wake. Can the convoy's disturbance mask them? Chen asked. For now, Santos replied from her station. But once we enter the hub's envelope, she let the sentence hang. They all knew what would happen then. The hub's intense quantum field would either hide them completely or expose them instantly. There would be no middle ground, no second chances. New contact. O'Neill's warning cut through the tense atmosphere. Second dreadnought emerging from quantum space. It's bigger than the first one. Chen moved to tactical, studying the massive vessel as it materialized. This one was different. Its hull patterns more complex, its weapons more numerous. A command ship. They're definitely looking for something, Santos said, analyzing the new data. These scan patterns, they're searching for quantum irregularities specifically, almost like they knew we were coming, Chen finished. She turned to her crew, seeing the same realization in their eyes. Status of the inverter. Santos checked her readings, then checked them again. Captain, the quantum interference from the dreadnoughts. It's having an unexpected effect. The inverter isn't just unstable anymore. It's evolving. Evolving. How is that possible? The original design was based on reversed engineered Correction technology, Santos explained, her eyes never leaving her display. We thought we understood it, but these readings suggest it's adapting to the local quantum environment, becoming something new. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. They were carrying a weapon that could alter the fundamental nature of quantum space, and now it was changing in ways they hadn't anticipated. But they had no choice but to continue. 4 minutes to envelope, O'Neill reported. The detection web is... He paused, frowning at his instruments. Captain, the web is contracting. They're tightening the search pattern. Show me. The tactical display updated, showing the complex pattern of quantum probes closing in around them. The corrections weren't just searching randomly anymore. They were being methodical, systematic, eliminating possible hiding spots one by one. "They'll find us before we reach the deployment point," Paddle said, voicing what they were all thinking. Chen studied the display, her mind racing. The corrections were using their superior technology, their perfect understanding of quantum mechanics, to hunt them down. But that understanding had limitations. It was based on rules, on certainty. "Dr. Santos," she said suddenly, "you said the inverter is evolving. Could we accelerate that process?" Santos looked up sharply. "Captain, if we deliberately destabilize the containment field, not destabilize, evolve. Let it become what it's trying to become." The scientist's eyes widened as she understood. That's insane. We have no way to predict what would happen. The quantum cascade could do exactly what we need it to do," Chen finished. "The corrections are looking for something that follows their rules. Let's show them something that doesn't." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. They had come to deploy a weapon, but now they were talking about unleashing something they barely understood. 2 minutes to envelope," O'Neill reported quietly. Chen looked at her crew. "Options." Santos worked her console furiously. "If we redirect power from the absorption field to the inverter's containment system, we might be able to control the evolution process. But Captain," she met Chen's eyes, "we'd be visible to their sensors. How long would we be exposed?" 30 seconds. Maybe less." Chen nodded. "That's 30 seconds for us to show them something they've never seen before. Something they can't predict or understand." She straightened in her command chair. "Prepare to redirect power on my mark." The Artemis continued its drift toward the quantum envelope, now surrounded by an ever-tightening web of alien sensors. In its cargo hold, the quantum inverter pulsed with strange energies, trying to become something more than its creators had intended. They had come to change the rules of warfare. Instead, they were about to change the rules of reality itself. 1 minute to envelope," O'Neill announced. "Detection web at 80% coverage." Chen took a deep breath. Everything they had fought for, everything humanity had sacrificed, came down to the next 60 seconds. "Stand by to redirect power," she ordered. "Let's show them what happens when you corner a species that doesn't know how to give up." Time seemed to slow as Captain Chen gave the order. "Redirect power now." The Artemis's absorption field collapsed in a cascade of quantum particles, revealing the ship to the Coraxian sensors. Almost instantly, alarms blared across the alien detection web. "Multiple weapons locks," O'Neill reported calmly. "Both dreadnoughts are powering up their main guns." But Chen's attention was focused on the cargo hold readings. As power flooded into the quantum inverter's containment system, something extraordinary began to happen. The device's quantum signature started to pulse in patterns that defied conventional physics. "Captain," Santos called out, her voice filled with wonder and terror. "The inverter, it's not just evolving. It's reaching out to the hub's quantum network, making connections I didn't think were possible." Through the view screen, Chen watched as strange distortions began to ripple through space around them. The crystalline structure of the network hub seemed to shimmer and flex, responding to the inverter's presence. "Coraxian vessels launching interceptors," O'Neill announced. "Time to weapon range, 20 seconds. The quantum envelope is destabilizing," Patel added from engineering. "Whatever the inverter's doing, it's affecting the hub's core systems." Chen watched as the massive dreadnoughts moved to surround them, their weapons charged and ready. The Coraxians had finally found their prey, but they still didn't understand what they were dealing with. "Dr. Santos," Chen called out, "what exactly is the inverter doing?" Santos' hands flew over her console, trying to make sense of the readings. It's using the Coraxians' own quantum network against them, but not like we planned. Instead of disrupting it, it's rewriting it, changing the fundamental rules of how their technology operates. The first shots from the Corexian interceptors streaked past the Artemis, their quantum-based weapons distorting strangely as they passed through the affected space. "Their weapons are losing coherence," O'Neill reported with surprise. "The quantum disruption is spreading through their entire fleet." Chen watched as the elegant Corexian ships began to move erratically, their sophisticated quantum systems struggling to function in space that no longer followed their rules. The inverter wasn't just attacking their network, it was changing the very nature of quantum physics in local space. "We're being hailed," Patel announced unexpectedly. "It's the Corexian command ship." Chen nodded. "Put them through." The view screen flickered, revealing a being of crystalline geometry and pulsing energy, a high-ranking Corexian commander. Its translated voice carried notes of both fury and fear. "What have you done?" it demanded. "This is impossible. Quantum space cannot be altered in this manner." Chen stood from her command chair, facing the alien entity. "That's your problem," she replied. "You're so certain about what's possible that you never consider the alternatives. Humanity doesn't accept your limitations." The Corexian's form flickered as another wave of quantum distortion swept through space. "You're destroying everything. The network, our ships, the very fabric of space-time." "No," Chen corrected. "We're changing it. Evolution, adaptation. That's what humanity does best. Your perfect quantum empire never considered that someone might come along and rewrite the rules." The inverter's influence continued to spread, creating a cascade effect through the Corexian network. Ships began to lose power as their quantum-based systems failed to function in the altered space. The massive hub facility itself started to transform, its crystalline structure reconfiguring into patterns that even its creators didn't understand. "Captain," Santos called out urgently, "the quantum cascade is reaching critical levels. If it continues to spread, it will reach their entire empire." Chen finished. She turned back to the Corexian commander. "You have a choice. Either adapt to the new rules, or watch your empire tear itself apart trying to operate in space that no longer follows your laws." The alien being's form wavered, its perfect geometric patterns dissolving into chaos. "You cannot do this. We are the masters of quantum space." "Not anymore," Chen replied. "Humanity just changed the game. The question is, can your empire survive playing by new rules?" The transmission cut off as another wave of quantum distortion swept through the hub. Around them, the mighty Corexian fleet was in chaos, their supposedly invincible technology rendered useless by changes they couldn't understand or control. "The cascade is stabilizing," Santos reported with amazement. "The inverter, it's created a new quantum paradigm, one that our technology can adapt to, but theirs can't, not without completely rebuilding their entire technological base." Chen allowed herself a small smile. They had come to fight an empire, but instead, they had done something far more profound. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in matching their enemy's power, but in changing the nature of the game itself. "Send the signal to Earth," she ordered. Tell them that the rules have changed. The Corexians aren't invincible anymore. They're just another species trying to adapt to a universe that doesn't work the way they thought it did." As the Artemis hung in space surrounded by the disabled Corexian fleet, Chen thought about how this would change everything. The aliens had thought humans were primitive because they didn't fully understand quantum mechanics. They never considered that this lack of understanding would allow humanity to think beyond established limits, to imagine possibilities that the Corexians' perfect knowledge had blinded them to. The war wasn't over, but its nature had fundamentally changed. The Corexians would adapt eventually. They had to if they wanted to survive. But by then, humanity would have already moved on, finding new ways to reshape reality itself. After all, that's what humans did best. They changed the rules of the game until they found a way to win.